Welcome into college football week 13. This is the BBOC tailgate. We bet college football player props. I'm Tim Kalinowski, joined by Mike Calabrese. It's rivalry weekend. Try saying that quickly. And I didn't even know what week it was when we first started this. So, Calabrese, we are miraculously, we're 27, 26 and 1 on the season. We've battled guys that have been injured. We lost one bet by a half a yard last week. So, I mean, we have to finish strong here. Again, we're a game up in the win column here, but hey, a lot can happen on a rivalry weekend. As long as we beat our rival, I guess we can call it a successful year. So start us off with where we're looking here.
All right, it's feast week. You mentioned rivalry week. Let's start with a rivalry. Good old-fashioned hate between Georgia and Georgia Tech. And in this one, it's pretty simple. Georgia Tech is going to blow the doors, Georgia's going to blow the doors off of Georgia Tech, even though they're playing in Atlanta. Home field advantage is not going to be able to tip the scales in their favor, but it will tip the scales in terms of Haynes King's passing prop. So I look at this at 166.5. I would play it up to 170.5 on the over. And it's pretty simple. When game flow situations have unfolded and it's a pass-friendly game script for Haynes King, he's gone over 280 passing yards 4 times. What were those 4 games? 2 shootout losses to Louisville and Ole Miss, then a blowout win over South Carolina State, and then they had a a high-scoring win against North Carolina in which he threw for 287 yards. So I view this as Georgia, grabbing a lead by the second quarter, and then Georgia Tech having to play catch up as they did last year. It was 37-14. Georgia Tech hung around for a little bit, and even against a vaunted Bulldogs pass defense last year, their backup quarterback, who's been sparsely used in his entire career, Zach Gibson, threw for 191 yards against the Bulldogs. So when I look at this Georgia pass defense, their roster in terms of personnel is super elite. Everybody knows that. They're still giving up 178 pass yards per game because it's opportunity-based. So I see Haynes King putting the ball in orbit plenty in this game, probably throwing it 35 times as their backup did last year. And at the end of the day, I think 166.5 is just too low.
I totally agree. Georgia's on to bigger and better things. They don't need to mess around with that game too much. Hey, get a big lead, get out of there, and let Haynes King chuck it around the yard and catch up to hopefully cash your prop there. I'm going to go ACC as well here. How about Cade Klubnik? Over 210.5 passing yards. I probably like it up to 217.5. Listen, this is a tale of, with these two teams and with Cade, it's a tale of the last 3 games versus the entire season sample size. So how about this? South Carolina, they've only allowed an average of 157 passing yards per game their last 3 games. Well, that's against Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. Everybody else, it's been an average of 298 passing yards per game. How about Cade Klubnik? Last 3 games, he's only averaging 177 passing yards. Everybody else, he averaged 243. So I think this number is spit out from what we're looking at in the last 3 games. And also, too, I think Clemson's going to be able to just chuck the rock in South Carolina. South Carolina's pass defense, it ain't good. And especially, Clemson doesn't hit explosives, but they've been more efficient, especially as of late, especially when things are easier on Cade, where they can establish the running game. Clemson's 34th in pass play success rate. South Carolina's defense is 107th in pass play success rate allowed. I don't think Clemson, I don't think they're going to be able to ride Shipley and Maffa as much as they would like, forcing Cade to chuck the rock a little bit. 210 is a pretty low number when we're talking college football. Give me Cade over 210.5 passing yards.
I promise this isn't an ACC only podcast here, but I'm going to go with another one out of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and it's Kevin Concepcion, the North Carolina State wide receiver, over 62.5 receiving yards. I play this up to 66. Listen, North Carolina State has very quietly reeled off 5 of 6, and a big part of that is Brennan Armstrong is finally playing back to his dual threat abilities. And when he's putting the ball in the air, it's going to Concepcion. The kid has double-digit targets in 4 games this year, and in his last 6, he's averaging 8.5 targets. So the opportunities are there, and the North Carolina pass defense, even though they've improved off of just a ghastly 2022 season where they finished 116th against the pass, they're only up to 82nd. And they still give up a ton of big plays. They've given up 17 pass plays or 30 yards or more this season. That's 75th nationally. And Concepcion has hit a play of 25 yards or more in 6 of his last 9 starts. So I view this as not only a good play against a weak pass defense, but also what they do with Concepcion, if you've been watching their games recently, is he plays in the slot. He plays on the perimeter. They put him in the backfield. So they've been using him in the run game a little bit, but you're also going to see the potential for a screen pass, some running back angle routes, basically moving him around to get mismatches in Robert and I's offense. I think there's a chance as well that this game between the Wolfpack and Tar Heels is a pass-heavy script, and it's a high-scoring game. So I think the fact that we're getting it in the mid-60s is a bit of a gift, because if the game flow goes the way I think it is, I think he'll be in the 80s in this one.
Yeah, the NC State quarterback situation, one of the most bizarre ones in the entire country to follow. But Concepcion, I mean, he's been a stud all season long, no matter who the quarterback is, even if it is Brennan Armstrong, who I think I actually might have a better arm than, but that's besides the fact. I'm going to go in the Big Ten here. Purdue wide receiver Deion Burks over 56.5 receiving yards, probably like it up to 62.5. And it just comes down to this, Calabrese. This is simple. Is Indiana pass defense? Is Indiana defense? You pick the stat. It's one of the worst in college football. And especially for some reason, on the road, their pass defense gets carved. Over 10 yards per throw on the road, this defense is allowing. Purdue also should have Hudson Card back. He missed the Northwestern game last week. They say it's probable. They expect that he should be back, and that's obviously important when you're betting a wide receiver prop. What's also important is that the rest of this wide receiver room, unfortunately, they're banged up. They're injured. By default, Burks is going to be wide receiver 1 here, and even with not being wide receiver 1 throughout the season, he's never had less than 4 targets in a game. He gets his looks, and I think he's going to get more than his fair share of cookies with the banged up wide receiver room and an Indiana pass defense that is absolutely dreadful. It's that simple for me, Calabrese. The number's too low because of the injuries.
All right. We've been talking a lot about overs. Let me throw out an under here to close this one out. Another rivalry, the Civil War between Oregon State and Oregon. Damian Martinez, 97.5 rushing yards. This one was the most confounding to me on the entire board, and I'll explain why. If you watch him play, he's clearly destined to get an opportunity to be an NFL feature back. He's got speed, explosion, he can carry the pile, he can break tackles, all of it. But Oregon State's only given him 20-plus carries in 2 of his 11 starts this year. And as a result, he had a 5-game streak in the middle of the season where he failed to exceed 90 yards. So sitting at 97.5, I think, is way off. I think it's actually off by about 15 yards. But the main reason here is that last week you saw against a Washington run defense that was 131st in success rate, he had 20-plus carries, goes over 100 yards. Everyone's starting to, have a bit of recency bias and say he's going to keep that going. Oregon's run defense is 11th in terms of success rate, and they're giving up just 96 yards per game on the ground. So when I view this as an opportunity from a game flow perspective for Oregon, who's a 2-touchdown favorite, to try to impress the committee with the blowout win, that means that Oregon State's going to abandon the run. And even when they are running it, Martinez is not the only running back who gets touches in that backfield. Deshaun Fenwick also gets goal line carries. And that could be the difference, the 5-6 yards that are left on the table. Because to get to 98 rushing yards against this Duck defense, I think is no small feat. So I'm going to go under. And as I said, it was the biggest disparity on my board. I'd set this total at 82.5. So 97.5 is a gift here on Feast Week.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Calabrese, I was pretty jealous when you sent me that pick last night when you got him in our little rundown. I was so jealous that I didn't think of that because, again, what you said with the game script, Oregon 14-point favorite, they should be cruising here and forcing Oregon State to chuck it from behind. And that doesn't bode well for a rushing game over. So I like where your head's at there. I'll ask you this. What's your favorite college football rivalry, Calabrese?
I would probably say the Iron Bowl. It's just one that's, even when it wasn't, factoring into the national title game, in the 90s and early 2000s, I still loved it. I love the passion, being someone outside of the South, just peering in on those Saturday afternoons in late November and seeing the pageantry and the passion and the intensity of the play on the field. Always one of my favorites. And the fact is that you have one team that has their eye on the national title every single year under Nick Saban, but another program that quite literally, if they win this game, forget about losing to New Mexico State last week. Auburn's entire season will be made. It'll be good times all throughout the spring for Hugh Freeze. So there's something to play for both teams, no matter what their records say.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would probably go Iron Bowl too. There's just something about it. There's just something about CBS 3:30. I mean, I'll just go Ohio State, Michigan, just because you picked the Iron Bowl. But should be a fantastic weekend of football here. And I mean, let's push it across the finish line before we get to championship weekend. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, Calabrese. Everyone who follows along as well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. It's back to work.